Good morning, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to come and talk with you all this morning. This is quite nice. So, because many of you know me only by the office that I hold, I want to touch for a moment this morning before we get into EcoDevo on the issue of experience. A good deal will be made this year over whether experience or a lack of experience is a better background to serve as governor of this state. Now, I thought that we had answered that question during the Teasdale administration, the last time we put someone without real experience in charge of our government. But perhaps the time to look at it has come again. My personal opinion is that it is better to know the government you lead than to not know it, and that the deeper one's understanding of this great state, the better one is able to manage this $27 billion enterprise we call Missouri. I have a law degree from the University of Missouri-Columbia, and I have a master's in business administration from Washington University in St. Louis. Professionally, I come out of Missouri's rural law enforcement community, where I served for a decade as the Republican prosecuting attorney of Cass County from 1994 to 2004. Over the course of my life, I've managed the prosecutions of more than 15,000 criminals, prosecuted more than 100 homicides, and overseen nearly 20 executions. I've had a badge in my back pocket protecting the people of Missouri for most of my adult life. The closer our state comes to deciding who should serve as Missouri's next governor, the more grateful I am to have learned the lessons of Missouri back in Harrisonville, on a rural county square in a century-old country courthouse. There were no lobbyists in Harrisonville. Politics was personal there, as they say. When a family was devastated by violence, the surviving family members sat in my office seeking help. Policing was not some theoretic problem because I knew the names of every police officer and every sheriff's deputy in my county. I didn't fight domestic violence by voting for some legislative fix up at the Capitol. I fought domestic violence by actually prosecuting the jerk and making certain the woman with the black eye and her children had a place to sleep that very night. And the young man who actually was a good kid but who had gotten off on the wrong track, I talked to the local Army recruiter to see what could be worked out. Every day, from the day that I was 30 until the day I was 40, when I met so many of you, I was helping real people. There were no marble halls, no lobbyists, no speeches in front of my fellow citizens, unless they were 12 citizens seated in a jury box. My life was helping people in a rural town in western Missouri, person by person. In 2004, my community elected me to the state senate to help write the laws I had been enforcing all of those years. And just 10 months after entering the Senate, I was elected by a vote of my colleagues as leader of the Republican caucus. Whatever the Republican Party might say about me over the next 10 months, the fact is that not so long ago, they thought enough of me to elect me as leader of the Republicans in the Senate. While we may have seen certain social issues differently, we were aligned on issues of fiscal conservatism, smaller government, and making Missouri known across the country for its wise and business-friendly economic environment. On August 1st, 2007, after 14 years as a Republican, I joined the minority party, partly over long battles regarding health policy, notably stem cell research, and partly because I feared that a governing party, who only knows how to turn right, time after time after time, ultimately steers a state in circles. Our progress requires a more bipartisan, less dogmatic approach than Missouri's Republican Party currently allows its members. And so to advocate for that more bipartisan approach to our state's challenges, I resigned my leadership post and became a conservative Democrat. 12 months later, in 2008, I was nominated by the Democratic Party to run for Attorney General. And for the past 7 years, I've served in that role. Those of you who are familiar with larger businesses know exactly what I do for a living. I'm the Chief Law Enforcement Officer and General Counsel to this state. If Missouri was a private corporation with its $27 billion in annual revenue, it would be the 100th largest corporation in the country, approximately the size of Emerson Electric. The general counsel shop that I manage is by far the largest general counsel office in the state of Missouri, public or private. It is substantially larger than the GC division of Anheuser-Busch, Emerson Electric, or Express Scripts. In fact, it's about the size of all three of them put together. I manage 350 lawyers and support staff spread across 5 cities. I supervise every constitutional issue that touches this state, every criminal justice issue that makes it to the upper courts, every death sentence carried out, every legal claim against Missouri, and much, much more. At any point in time, I'm managing approximately 40,000 cases in the courtrooms of this country. My clients are the governor, the lieutenant governor, the other statewide officers, the Senate and the House, the 16 cabinet divisions, the hundreds of boards and commissions that we have, and most importantly, you. My office's reserve fund, currently at $13 million, is 26 times larger than the one I inherited in 2009. I've recovered and returned to the citizens of this state nearly $500 million from unscrupulous businesses. I'm one of the few attorney generals in the country who still goes into court to try cases personally, as I've done in rural courtrooms, from rural courtrooms all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And just as importantly to the people in this room today, my office is 15% smaller than it was in 2008. And it has operated $30 million under budget over the past 7 years. When I say I believe in smaller government, it is not some aspirational statement of some candidate who has never held the wheel. It is a fact. Smaller government is what I have delivered to you over the past decade. Now, improving Missouri's business climate starts with an understanding of where Missouri currently stands. And in part, due to Dan Meehan's success and the efforts of those of you here in this room, we've made significant progress over the past 2 decades in improving our state's business climate. Income tax rates, despite what the previous speaker just said, income tax rates were cut in 2014 for most Missouri businesses by 25% and for W-2 earners by 10%. On the books now are incremental changes that will lower state income taxes to their lowest levels since 1921. Missouri's unemployment insurance program has been dramatically overhauled. My office is currently defending this unemployment insurance reform from a lawsuit in the Missouri Supreme Court. Assuming I'm successful, Missouri's UI rates will soon be among the lowest in the country. Large-scale tort reform was passed in 2005, a bill which I worked on and voted in favor of when I was in the Missouri Senate. Workers' comp rates are coming down at Missouri Employers Mutual, the market leader in our state, and comp rates are predicted to continue to decline in Missouri for the foreseeable future. And my office has been at the national forefront of fighting back regulatory overreach from Washington, D.C. In just the last 2 years, I sued the Obama administration over the EPA's mercury rule and won. I then sued the EPA over the Waters of the United States rule and won. Then I sued the EPA over the Clean Power Plan in order to keep Missouri's utility rates low, and last week in the United States Supreme Court, won again. Missouri's unemployment rate, currently at 4.4%, is at its lowest level since July of 2001. Last month, the U.S. Census Bureau ranked Missouri first among the 50 states for new business creation. And 2 months ago, a national trade magazine named St. Louis as the #1 fastest growing startup city in the country and ranked Kansas City as number 10 on that list. Finally, a single astounding statistic regarding the long-term reduction in the size of our state government. In 1986, exactly 30 years ago, Missouri state government consumed 5.6% of gross personal income for all Missourians. Think about that. The denominator is the sum of all personal income earned by every citizen in this state. The numerator is the total state government budget. In 1986, state government consumed 5.6% of Missouri's gross personal income. Today, state government consumes not 5.6%, but 3.9% of gross personal income, meaning that as a drag on Missouri's total economy, that state capital up there is 31% smaller than it was 3 decades ago. The Conservative Tax Foundation in Washington ranks Missouri as the 17th best business environment in the country and the best in our region. But a deeper analysis of the Tax Foundation data indicates that once the tax cuts of 2014 are phased in 7 years from now, Missouri should rank 12th in the country. Now, the question is, what are we going to do to keep that train rolling? In February of 2014, several months before the tax cuts were voted upon, I wrote an article that was published in newspapers across Missouri and that is available on the back table at the end of this speech. The article called for Missouri to be recognized as a top 10 business-friendly state in 10 years in national surveys such as the Tax Foundation's. I called upon my fellow policymakers to begin with 2 significant steps toward that goal. First, I advocated for the reductions of taxes on individuals and businesses in our state, thereby sending a signal across this country that the new Missouri was open for business. Second, I challenged lawmakers to make a historic commitment to investing in Missouri's infrastructure, beginning with an investment of $2 billion federal dollars annually into our state's healthcare system. As you and I meet here this morning, the challenge set down in that article is only partially completed. Regarding the issue of business taxation, the legislature sent a strong signal by lowering taxes on S-corps, limited liability corporations, and limited partnerships to 4.5%. Yet they stopped short of completing the entire reform. Today, Missouri's tax rates on C-corps remains at 6.25%. There is no rationale that I am aware of why Missouri should tax S-corps, LLCs, and LPs at 4.5% and C-corps at 6.25%. Entrepreneurs in Missouri shouldn't be taxed based on the IRS chapter that their lawyer happened to incorporate them under. Taxes on business profits should be simple, uniform, and consistent. Therefore, in order to continue Missouri's push toward top 10 status and to maintain logical consistency in tax policy, Missouri's effective C-corp rate should be brought in line with all other state business taxes at 4.5%. The other half of my challenge called upon our legislature to make historic investments in Missouri's infrastructure system, thereby opening the door to 50,000 new private sector jobs in 24 months. This straightforward goal can be accomplished up there at the Capitol with 3 bipartisan decisions. First, Missouri should expand Medicaid. Healthcare expansion solves a $2 billion hole in our state's GDP, will stabilize rural healthcare throughout Missouri, and will create 40,000 new healthcare jobs in urban and rural communities alike, and at salaries well above the state average. Set aside the healthcare benefits of Medicaid expansion. Set aside the humanitarian considerations. If for no other reason besides the economic benefits alone, leveraging $2 billion federal healthcare dollars annually is the best economic development proposal this state has seen in 25 years. The benefits of Medicaid expansion would dwarf the benefits to Missouri that we would have realized under the Boeing deal of 2013 or the China Hub deal of 2011 or the Bombardier deal of 2008, and at a fraction of the cost. The Missouri Chamber and chambers across this state strongly support expansion. As governor, I will look forward to working with the General Assembly to adopt compromises, such as reasonable work requirements on Medicaid-eligible citizens, managed care structures for insurers, and other safeguards that will make Medicaid expansion right for the people of Missouri. The second infrastructure decision: we must keep the Missouri Department of Transportation fully funded. With 34,000 miles of road, Missouri has the 7th largest highway system in the nation, and yet we rank 42nd in the country in the funding that we maintain to provide for that system. We sit at the crossroads of this country. Good roads and safe bridges are key to maintaining Missouri's competitive advantage. And investment in this transportation infrastructure will create 3,000 new construction jobs. As governor, I look forward to working with forward-looking Republicans like Mike Kehoe and Doug Libla to craft a bipartisan funding structure that meets our highway construction needs without draining money from Missouri's public schools. The third infrastructure decision. It's time to begin rebuilding Missouri's energy grid. Our state's electric transmission system is nearing the end of its life cycle. Yet antiquated regulations over at the Missouri Public Service Commission leave energy producers disadvantaged in their ability to obtain capital and disincentivized to modernize our substations, transmission lines, and conservation technologies. Senate Bill 1028 and House Bill 2495, both Republican proposals, are the first steps toward providing a reasonable fix to this problem, allowing energy companies to obtain capital at competitive interest rates while at the same time protecting consumers from excessive cost increases. If passed, this legislation will open the way for $2.5 billion of grid maintenance over the next 10 years and create an additional 3,000 jobs. Taken together, these three decisions by the Missouri General Assembly will create nearly 50,000 new private sector jobs and provide $30 billion in infrastructure investment over the next 10 years, all while advancing bipartisan goals of investing in Missouri's healthcare, transportation, and energy sectors. If I had more time this morning, I would talk with you about the need to create a deal closing fund to compete with Texas and North Carolina to recruit light manufacturing companies to rural communities across our state. I would talk to you about tort reform measures that will allow Missouri's rural electric cooperatives to bring broadband to every home, every school, and every business in rural Missouri. I would tell you about higher education reforms that will unify our state's universities and community college campuses and prepare Missouri's workforce of tomorrow. And I would talk to you about my plans to reorganize the Department of Economic Development, the Missouri Partnership, and the Missouri Technology Corporation in a way that will have me, as governor, out on the road aggressively recruiting manufacturers and suppliers to our state's automotive, agribusiness, financial services, and plant sciences sectors. When I'm governor of this state, economic development will be at the very core of my administration, creating a top 10 environment, making historic investments in Missouri's healthcare, transportation, and energy infrastructures, will be at the forefront of next year's State of the State address. And recruiting businesses to Missouri will be my personal daily mission. And seeking the counsel of Missouri's business community as we go forward together will be recognized by you as this conservative Democrat's trademark. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this morning, and I want to thank you for what you do every day to create a stronger Missouri.